Alright, hey, what's up? So in this video, I've made some changes to the setup here. I've got a new counter, overall timer, and just I think a better layout. But first, I kind of wanted to go over a couple points. Firstly, so this is an experiment to see if adults can get perfect pitch. This is based off of David Lucas Burge um, audio CDs. Think it was called like the Perfect Pitch Master Class or something like that. Um, it's floating around on the internet somewhere, but in there he has a series of exercises and a series of drills to, as he describes it, to open up the ear and essentially, he says that it's possible for adults to get perfect pitch, which I've tried to look up, and aside from a couple articles, have not really seen any definitive proof uh, that it's possible. So I think it's possible. I think if you have dedicated practice and good routine, that you can eventually get some form of oral recall. And so this channel is essentially just going to try and be to see if whether or not that's possible. So I'm pretty motivated. I've tried to do this in the past, but I've always kind of fallen out of it. Um, so I've got a lot of things going. I've got um, the MuseScore stuff, which I think is going to be a really good, helpful tool that we'll get into a little bit later on. Kind of doing the drills, which in the past I just sat in front of a piano keyboard and just played random notes to do the drills. But like I said, we'll get into that a little bit later as we go through. But I've also created this calendar here to where, I'm going to try and do 10, 15, 20 minutes a day and then, keep track as well as try and upload every day. So I started yesterday, but I felt like I didn't really kind of explain what was going on. But that video is up, and today will be the official start. So I'm going to do what I did yesterday over again. I kind of revised the exercise for today, and like I said, for the 50th time, we'll get into that. But yeah, so I think that pretty much covers it. The main thing is that this is just an experiment. I'm not saying this is exactly what's um, going to give me perfect pitch. I don't have perfect pitch right now. I don't have good relative pitch at all. Even I've got the staff cheat sheet up here. I'm a very novice music person. I like to make music, but the theory and um, chord structure, relative pitch, all these things, never really put forth a whole lot of dedicated effort towards. And I'm sure my relative pitch will improve as I go through this because I'm going to try and be cognizant of, you know, whether something's a minor third or a major third, um, or whatever the interval might be. But probably not super duper initially because I don't want to overload on um, what the main thing is, which is focusing on the pitches themselves. Um, but yeah, so we'll just kind of get going here. I might cut this out and have this as just like the intro video, but I may decide to do this again as I get more comfortable kind of talking through the process and things like that. But I'll just give a quick breakdown of kind of what we have here on the screen. So this is a program called MuseScore, and this allows us to hear, so we input onto the staff. I'm going to be using a piano, but if you want to do this, you can create your own. There's different instruments that you can use. I guess the advice given in the course was that you use the instrument you're most familiar with. So for me, that would be the piano. But if just as an example here, I can click back and we can hear the notes. One major tip if you're going to use this program is to slow the tempo down. Use whole notes and slow the tempo down as low as it can go, because whenever you press the play mode, it will allow the notes to ring out. Rather than if I would just use the arrow keys to jump from measure to measure, they only play for a very short amount of time, and that's called the note preview, that can only go up to 999 milliseconds. So decrease the tempo, use whole notes, and use the play mode to get the longest duration note as you go through these exercises. Down here in the right hand side, I've got a timer. I'm going to try and keep track of the total time that I've spent practicing, regardless of if it's on video or not. There's will be times where I want to practice where I'm not going to be sitting in front of my recording setup or whatever. So I'm going to try and have, but I will be on the computer, so I'm going to have this timer. So you'll see this kind of jump around as I go through the videos, but that's just what that is I'm trying to get a more accurate representation of how much time is actually being spent on dedicated practice, and hopefully that will reflect on that timer. Then down here at the bottom, I just have this little counter program. I found it on GitHub, and it's just a really lightweight counter because as you go through the exercises, what we're going to be doing is listening to a chord and then trying to sing and not identify, but just sing each individual note from the bottom up. Or it doesn't necessarily, I don't think it has to necessarily be from the bottom up. If you hear the top one first, it's okay, but trying to identify both and sing both before you listen to the individual note. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to add a step onto that, and I'll hum the notes probably first to identify them, and then I'll be kind of using this cheat sheet over here to like sing them, like the note name as I sing the note from the bottom up, just to kind of, in my head, it seems like seeing it on the staff paper, you're kind of reading the music, so you're kind of associating that visual, like that note on the staff to that sound. And so I think that just using the staff paper and everything might kind of help reinforce that a little bit, because before I was using a music program like a DAW called Bitwig, and I had it set up to, I could just play one note on the keyboard, but it would play 2 random notes for me. And it was working, but it just seems like the piano roll as a visual didn't seem very helpful as like a reinforcement tool. So I think this is going to work a lot better. I think I've got a good setup, and I think that this also allows other people to do it whenever they want to, or follow along or whatever, because MuseScore is free, and if there's interest generated, I can make these scores available, but they're very easy to make as well if you know how the exercise is set up, which I've put the directions at the top, but we might go through again. That pretty much sums it up. This isn't the only type of exercise. Throughout the duration of this, it's going to be a lot more, it's going to be a lot different types of exercises, I guess. There's one I have in mind that is a little bit different from the perfect pitch course, where they have you kind of play each note and associate it with a color. My brain doesn't really work like that, so we're going to do something a little bit differently, and that video will be up. But yeah, so it's not all going to be on MuseScore. There's a couple applications floating around where it will just play random notes, and you have to identify them or try to identify them. You can pick 3 notes and have them play randomly. So yeah, I mean, it's not all going to just be on here, so more to come. But like I said, 10-15 minutes a day is kind of what I'm aiming for. I'm not aiming for anything crazy. and hopefully, I can keep this up for a couple months. And I'd love to videotape it all. And if I miraculously do somehow end up getting some recall, or even just improving my relative pitch by quite a lot, this will be something out there that people can reference. So there we go. We're gonna get started. I guess there's one last thing. You do have to sing the notes. So I'm not entirely sure how this works for somebody who can't necessarily sing them. Like maybe you can hear them in your head, but you can't like mimic the tone with your voice. Not entirely sure how that works, because I think actually singing the note is gonna go a long way in helping to solidify the note like in your head or whatever. But I don't really know. So just as maybe a word of caution, if you maybe work on that first before jumping into this, if you feel like you can't sing the exact tone. And you'll see as I go through this too that it doesn't have to be in the same octave either. You just have to sing the note. Because just for exercise sake, I made some of these in higher register or octave than the others, just to get a wide range of tones to practice on. I probably could have even gone lower on some of these, but overall it should be good. These ones should be fairly easy to identify. Like I said, I've gone through these before. I've gotten up to like the third or fourth one before I kind of fell out of routine with it. So these ones shouldn't be too difficult. But if I do get them all first try and you don't be discouraged. Just keep going. I definitely didn't the first time that I did this. But I just wanted to start from the very beginning this time, just to show the whole process.